go over this concept of metaphysical necessity. Before we even talk about metaphysical necessity, which is kind of like a kind of wishy-washy term, kind of mysterious. What do you mean by metaphysical necessity, right? Let's talk about what is necessity in general, right? What does necessity mean? So, one definition of necessity means that it could not have been otherwise. But let's think about what that means, right? To think about what could not have been otherwise, there's different sense in which that can be true. There's a sense in which 2 plus 2 equals to 4 cannot be otherwise, right? Because you can't imagine a possible world where 2 plus 2 equals to 5, right? Because this is a logical truth, right? Or what about all bachelors are unmarried, right? All bachelors are unmarried. The very definition of a bachelor means an unmarried male. So to say that a bachelor is an unmarried male has to be true, not just in some sort of some imagine. It would have to be true in all imaginary scenarios. So so there's a sense of which that when we talk about necessity, and if we define necessity in a sense that it could not have been otherwise, there's different notions of this notion of it could not have been otherwise. It could be it could not have been otherwise logical in a logical sense, in which case we would define this to be logical necessity, where 2 plus 2 equals to 4 is logically necessary. And in the same way that 2 plus 2 equals to 5 is logically impossible. Or to say that all bachelors are married male would be logically impossible, right? And to say that a bachelor is an unmarried male is logically necessary, not just in our world, but in all imaginary scenario we can imagine. So the strongest type of necessity would be kind of like this notion of logical necessity, right? Which is something like, so it's a necessity based on or by virtue of logic alone. Think about think about the proposition P, then P, right? If P is true, then P is true. That seems to be a logical truth in any possible worlds or in any imagined scenarios. So, or what about if P or not P, right? That has to be true. So either something is true or something is false, right? So that covers the whole space of possibilities for what a proposition must be, right? So, in the realm of it could not have been otherwise, there is a sense of what is called logical necessity, and 2 plus 2 equals to 4, or all bachelors are married, are examples of it, right? So there's another sense in which it could not have been otherwise, right? Which is a kind of physical necessity. So this is physical necessity is a kind of necessity in virtue of the laws of nature, in virtue of the laws of nature of our current world. So in that, imagine the following proposition, that no signal can travel faster than the speed of light. Yet, if you think about it, no signal can travel faster than the speed of light. Yet there doesn't seem to be something logically prohibitive to imagine a signal traveling faster than the speed of light. It's just that it's just not possible in our current world, right? Because the speed of light is supposed to be the cosmic speed limit, according to Einstein. So nothing can travel faster than the speed of light in our world. But there's nothing prohibitive in imagining, say, a possible world or possible universe where the laws of nature could be maybe slightly different, where signals in that universe can travel faster than the speed of light, right? Another example would be I don't know if how many of you guys remember your undergraduate physics class, but there is Newton's gravitation is the inverse square law, right? Inverse square law. But that's how the laws of our universe kind of am, right? In terms of, how the forces are kind of related to the inverse square law of the distance between the two objects. But maybe in a different universe where the laws of nature would be slightly different, there might be something like an inverse cube law where the force, gravitational force between two objects is inversely related to the cube of the distance between them. So that's possible, right? That's possible in a logical sense, but not possible in a physical sense, because that would, the inverse cube law is not of the law of our world, not of the law of our universe. So today's topic, set in the background of logical necessity and physical necessity, we really are talking about metaphysical necessity, right? And basically, this type of necessity is a necessity by virtue of identity or essence of things. So, what do we mean by the identity or essence of things? Like, take, for example, water is H2O. There's a sense in which, like, you can say it's contingent, or it's like it might not be true. Maybe there's another world where water is not H2O. Maybe water is X, Y, and Z, right? In which case, water is H2O is maybe true in our world, but not true in all possible worlds, or it's not metaphysically true. But we're gonna talk about in today. We're gonna talk about how water is H2O is something akin to logical necessity. That it's actually as metaphysical necessity is kind of more aligned with logical necessity than physical necessity in a sense, right? We're gonna talk a little bit about how we can think about water is H2O. This statement being something as strong as, say, P or not P is true, right? We're gonna, or bachelor is unmarried male, right? It's that level of strength, right? So we're gonna talk about how water is H2O is true, not just true of our world, but is true in all possible worlds, or is metaphysically true. Another example we're gonna go over is helium has atomic number 2, right? Can we imagine a possible world where, for example, helium doesn't have atomic number 2? Well, this is something we're going to talk about. So helium has an atomic number 2 might be a metaphysical truth. So ergo, it might be helium has atomic number 2 may be metaphysically necessary. That is true, but why, how strong is that truth? Is metaphysically necessary. Okay. So something about metaphysical necessity, right, is a kind of necessity that is not knowable a priori, right? It's not something that you know of metaphysical truth by just being in your room and being very smart and being able to deduce stuff, and in your head being able to figure out everything in your head. What I mean is that metaphysical truths are truths that you have to go out in the world to discover. So they are empirical truths. They are a posteriori truth. So they are only knowable by empirical means, right? One knows it if it's necessary for what water is. So, sorry, this is really bad writing here. But so you need to know, you need to go out in the world to really discover what water really is, to kind of establish the identity that water is H2O. So metaphysical truth is unlike, say, the other kind of truth like analytical truth where bachelor is unmarried, because the definition of bachelor embeds the concept of unmarried male, or mathematical truths like 2 plus 2 equals 4, right? Where it's almost analytic, right? It is analytic, right? In a sense that you don't need to go out of your room to figure out that 2 plus 2 equals 4. You just need to know the axioms of math. So, metaphysical truth is the kind of truth that you need to go out in the world to actually find out. But once you find out the truth of it, then it becomes something of a necessity, right? Like, I give you an example. Water is H2O and helium has atomic number 2. These are statements. The truth depends not only on how smart you are, but it's also dependent on how the world is. You have to go out in the world to discover that, oh, water has this such and such molecular structure, or helium has such and such atomic number. So metaphysical truth is really under the banner of empirical truth, that truth that you have to discover in order to know.